Welcome to the Obvious Podcast, episode number 44. My name is Sonny. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Associated Builders and Contractors, Florida East Coast.
And hello, I'm Peter Daiga, President and CEO at ABC Florida East Coast.
You are listening to the Obvious Podcast, where all opinions expressed are our own, unless we say otherwise.
Love the show? Subscribe on any major podcast platform or watch us in action on YouTube. Follow the Obvious Podcast on Instagram, X, and Truth Social. All the links you need are in the show notes. Reach out to us anytime at theobvious@abceastflorida.com. And if you're enjoying the ride, help others find us by leaving a review wherever you listen.
Happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence Day. We are starting the official countdown to our 250th anniversary today. 365 days to go, and Trump is going to have a parade like the mother of all parades, in a year.
Can you imagine?
50 years. It's pretty cool.
It's very cool. But can you imagine a military parade in Washington, D.C.? What's going to happen to, the media will have a meltdown.
Oh, unbelievable.
Meltdown.
Yeah, they already are. I mean, a parade for 249 was bad enough.
Right, yeah.
250 is really going to blow their mind.
Well, if you're watching this on the day we premiered this episode, you're probably having a barbecue. You're probably making plans for your fireworks show. So we want to, from all of us at The Obvious, we just want to thank you. Our entire team wants to wish you a happy Independence Day.
Absolutely. So
it is an honor and a privilege to be an American, and don't ever take that for granted, please.
Amen. We've all been blessed. In fact, I would argue the world's been blessed, I think, by the United States and our leadership. Sometimes it's better than others, but continue to pray that we're a force for good in the world and for peace, for democracy. And anyway, celebrate.
There's a reason people risk life and limb and give up all their time and treasure just to make it to this country.
Absolutely. And for those that make sacrifice and seek that citizenship, that membership in our society, kudos to you. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to all the people who, just because they want a better life, who come to work. I say congratulations to you. Yeah. So, and I think it's awesome that we're still a country that can provide that opportunity. So. But if you're coming for a handout, and you're coming because you hate the country, or you're coming because I've got a problem with that, as I think our president does. So
that's always weird. That's so weird to me, right? Like, I'm not a fan of North Korea. I don't make any effort to go there, right? Like, why would you want to come here if you hate this place?
That's right. In fact, I'm so radical that there are places in the world that I won't visit. I won't visit Cuba. There's places. I remember. In my younger years, many people probably don't recall this, but the whole apartheid in South Africa, and there was a good push to try to move people's consciences, to divest from South Africa because of the apartheid system they had, which I thought was great. It was a great movement. But then the same people that wanted to divest from that system are more than happy to invest and go to Cuba or go to North Korea or go to, anyway, you name the place. So anyway, I try to, there's plenty of beautiful places in the world to visit and see without having to.
So I have a lot of friends who come from countries like Venezuela, Cuba, that where socialism and communism has destroyed their, Russia.
In some cases, in lightning speed. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
So, and every 4th of July, there's, in the different WhatsApp chat groups and text groups and all that, there's always an exchange, and it always peaks around 4th of July. And it's a meme, and it says there's a list of countries where communism and socialism have been successfly implemented. And the list goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the list is blank, like not a single name, right?
You don't understand, Sonny. It just hasn't been tried. Just hasn't been tried perfectly, right? So.
I was having lunch with a U.S. senator. This is months ago, and I was discussing with the senator he's not from Florida. He's from a different state in the Southeast, and we were discussing the ABC Institute, which, as many of you know, if you're a frequent listener to the show, is the largest provider of apprenticeship education in the state of Florida. And state of Florida has done a great job sort of creating the framework with which to be really efficient with its resources and how they fund apprenticeship.
for sure.
And so I was having this conversation with the senator about the U.S., the federal system, and how the feds can help, and and he's on the education committee in the Senate, and the head of the education committee in the Senate is Bernie Sanders. And so I had all these ideas I shared with the senator. He's like, and he looked at me. He's like, Sonny, they will never come to the committee. Nothing will ever happen. I said, because of Bernie Sanders? He's like, yeah, he will never, ever, ever allow anything to come that is in any way useful or helpful to the to the private sector, right?
Wow.
And I was like, wow, he's just a communist. He's like, yeah, and he'll tell you that to your face.
Yeah.
He said, Bernie will tell you, and Bernie will tell you to your face that he is a socialist,
Yep.
right? And you just think about, I mean, of course, the guy's a socialist. He honeymooned in
Again, I'm
Moscow.
constantly reminded of, the willingness to say a lie over and over and over to your face. And only and if they are forced out of the lie will they ever abandon it, like the Biden lie.
Yeah.
Right?
So I would recommend you go back and check out our episode on the Biden cover up, which I believe was episode 43. Yeah. Oh, our last episode was on the Biden cover up.
Yeah. But saying you're a socialist and pretending, right, and pretending anyway. So
what's wrong with the people of Vermont that they keep re-electing these idiots, right? Like, I don't understand. Like, Minneapolis or Minnesota, like, how is Ilhan Omar keeps getting elected?
Yeah, I don't know.
Who's the voting bloc that keeps putting these people back into office?
Yeah. Anyway. Despite that, how would you define success in this country? How has this country shown success over our 249, approaching 250th anniversary? In what ways would you say the country's been a success?
I think
Let's count them off.
Go ahead.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's got to be a lot, right?
It's a lot, right? I mean, listen, it's obviously the country's made its mistakes.
Of course.
There's nobody saying it's perfect. Like, we're not being Pollyannish about it. But
of course.
And what
that really bothers me, by the way. That's so intellectually lazy.
Right?
To be like, just because you're saying positive things or bragging about something doesn't mean you're saying they're perfect. That's just stupid.
I remember getting into an argument in college because I said something very pro-American, and some guy goes, "Oh yeah, what about slavery?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not defending slavery. It doesn't mean the country's perfect." Right? That's
the definition of a red herring.
Red herring. Yeah. I mean, straw man argument. I mean, all sorts of things, right? You're just like. Anyway, I think in terms of how we define success as a country, I think this country has done more to raise the standard of living of people than any other country that has ever existed on this earth.
Okay.
Ever.
Because of policies or because of our economy? In what way?
All of
both.
Yeah. Right? It is as close to a meritocracy than any country that has ever existed.
Right.
Right?
I think you're right.
Europe, I think feudalism, their ruling class, England is so freaking structured in terms of, you're this class, you're this class, you're this class.
Yeah.
And a lot of the world's like that. I mean, there's classes in India and Africa and all over the world that people are stratified. America is one of the rare countries in the world where they don't give a flip what your daddy did.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, you've told great stories about this over the,
and I love that about this country.
Been influential in your life. That have been great stories in the past.
Absolutely. I'm from a culture where if your daddy was a cobbler, you were a cobbler.
Yeah.
If daddy was a tailor, you were a tailor. If your daddy was a homeless beggar, you were a homeless beggar. There was no ability to transcend the circumstances you were born into, and there has never been a better country on the face of this earth that has allowed you to do that than the United States of America.
But it takes so let's move on to a few other items of what makes us successful. But it takes apparently in today's day and age, a special person to recognize that as we go through this list, if your inclination is to say, "But what about?" and think about the negative,
but what about
you've got a problem. Nobody here is saying, "Can you not intellectually acknowledge the positive things that this country has done for the world and for humanity, without having to fight or battle the urge to be, but what about our imperfections and our warts and our sins and our whatever." So anyway, so this is going to be the last time we're going to preface with we acknowledge those things.
Acknowledge it, yeah.
All right, so certainly been beneficial economically for the world and for people who've lived in the United States. I think from a democracy standpoint, I think promoting democracy,
Yeah.
In the world. I think that's been a benefit. I think stability and peace, I think have been a benefit.
I mean, as a country with the most powerful military in the world, right? To not go and take over the world, right? I mean, people always talk about like America's greatest export is its culture, right? And there's so much that this country does that never gets talked about in the media, right? Like we give more money, our country gives more money to charity, certainly on a per capita basis than any other country in the world, right? We feed people all over the world, our grain, our foreign aid. I mean, there's all these things that this country does.
Accidents and disasters happen. Anyway. So
I remember as a child, my parents were so impressed. That you could have an accident anywhere in America and dial a 3-digit number and then an ambulance shows up. They couldn't believe it.
Right.
They could not believe it. Right. Like that blew their mind.
So you bring up a good point. I'd add to that list just the technology and the advancement and availability of certain basic products and
well, I would say the value of life.
The value of life.
The value of life. I mean, I know you and I talk about this a lot, especially in the sense
How about hope? You were talking earlier about people who, quite frankly, probably live a very sad life of despair, but they've for many, many centuries have held out hope of immigrating to the United States. It's, by the way, which is ordinarily not an easy process.
No,
it's not an easy process. So, anyway. While you're enjoying your hot dog and drinking your beer, there's a lot to be thankful for, a lot to celebrate. We wanted to kind of tie it also in the ways we measure success at ABC. And thank you, our ABC members, whether it's at our chapter or any of the chapters around the country. We think we know ABC has been a positive influence for meritocracy and the merit shop in the United States for 75 plus years.
Yeah.
Its founding was in part based on freedom or a desire for the ability to enroll employees in apprenticeship programs and to be able to contract.
Being denied that by the unions.
Right. That's right.
They were denied that, like freedom and independence. And what did Americans do? They didn't take up, billy clubs and get into a fight. We were like, fine, we'll start our own organization. We'll compete with you.
Exactly. So anyway, at ABC, and specifically this chapter, I think most chapters, obviously we measure success by our membership and our membership growth. Our retention and our new members that we recruit every year. And we've had a long-standing success of I think, positive growth and success in that regard. So it's very basic. And for a lot of nonprofits, that's where the story ends.
I know, because that's all they're about is membership, right? Number one source of revenue.
Yeah, and then trying to use, which any good nonprofit, you use that revenue to fulfill the mission and to try to solve problems, hopefully, and fulfill that mission that you have established for you and for your members in the industry. So, but our story certainly doesn't end there. In fact, the reason we got started on the concept for this podcast is we were having a conversation about the many different ways that we, at this chapter in particular, can measure success and do measure success.
Yep.
So what are some others you can think of, Sonny?
For the country or for us?
For us.
For us. So what's the number one challenge for most nonprofits, right? The number one challenge obviously is revenue, right? And revenue streams.
Can't pursue the mission without.
Right, of course. And what I find fascinating, there's this perception, right? There's this perception in the world that somehow, and I'm not the first one to say this, that somehow you can't be successful running a nonprofit. Like you can't be paid well to run a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have argued the point that this is why nonprofits seem to never solve their problems because they are unable to attract the best and the brightest.
Yeah. Right. By the way, there's a little like inside baseball. Like I saw something we were developing internally recently that used that term nonprofit, and I made a point of I don't ever like to use that.
Yeah.
Not for profit.
Right.
To me, is a little more reflective, but it doesn't mean we're not. Technically, it's not a profit, but boy, we're very conscientious about generating revenue here because the more we generate,
the more of an impact we have with for our mission.
That's exactly right. So,
and the strategic goals that our board lays out for us.
Yep.
I agree with you. I don't even like the word nonprofit. To me, a nonprofit is a tax status.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really not.
It's not a business model.
It's not a business model.
Yeah. So,
and our business, and listen, most nonprofits, if they're lucky, will have 2, 3 streams of revenue. We are sitting on 8 at ABC.
Yeah. So we sit around and we talk a lot about how should we measure success? How should our members measure our success? And I would definitely think our membership is one. It's good being large, one of the largest in the country. I think that's a measure of success. I think the success and the size and the breadth of our education, the ABC Institute, I think is a measure of success.
Yep.
I think the success and the attendance and the profitability, if you will, of our events is another measure of success.
Yep.
I think our publishing business at ABC, because we're looked at as a leader in the industry, where we can, publish one of the study guides, if you will, for people taking the contractor's exam. That's a measure of success. I think our real estate and its growing portfolio, its growing value, and its service to us in our industry and the whatnot is a measure of success. Chime in whenever you want. I think
You're doing great.
I think our foundation, which just by the way topped 1.4 million.
Yeah, congratulations.
Is a measure of success. And we're growing it at the same time we're growing our assistance. To people.
What impresses me the most about how your leadership has impacted this organization. So let's talk about the foundation, ABC Cares, right? Your idea. You had this idea 10 years ago.
Yep.
10 years ago. You executed on it about 7, 8 years ago. And you've taken it to a incredible position where it's got 1.4 million in endowment. It's having every time there's any sort of a disaster, we're like the first one in the arena, having a huge impact. But what I'm really impressed by is the fact that here's CARES, but because CARES has been successful, I want to make this point. Everything else continues to thrive. So because CARES is successful, it doesn't mean something gets dropped off.
Sure,
right?
Absolutely.
Like the juggling continues and it gets better and better and better. And just because we're adding balls to our juggling doesn't mean something's being dropped. And I think that's an important point to know because
absolutely
CARES has been successful, but membership has continued to be successful. Events has continued to be successful. Our linchpin of growth sort of centered around real estate has continued to be successful. So, the team here, the simplest way I can make this point is the team here does a phenomenal job of being able to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Absolutely. So, and I want to keep going. So, there are so many ways I think, and again, we ask you, what is your measure of success for us? And you probably don't think of all these things the way we do, but we think of them often around here, and we think all the things we already mentioned are one way of measuring success.
So I want to share a story. We had a member who did some work for a public governmental entity in a different part of Florida. So certainly not part of the chapter territory. And this member was having a difficult time over a year and a half to get paid, right? They finished the work, they got the contract, they finished the work. They're not getting paid. And this governmental entity is basically ignoring the member, right? Member's been trying for a year and a half to get paid. The member calls you and I, right? We get an email from the member. You and I, or you reach out to the CEO of the ABC chapter where this governmental entity is located. Within 3 days, our member had a meeting with the governmental entity, and within 30 days of their meeting, they got paid.
Right. It's a great story.
And I think about
so government affairs is a measure of success. Its influence is a measure of success. And it's not just our chapter. Thank God other chapters have the same mission and the same interests in terms of growing and they have the relationship so that when our member has a problem and it's outside our region, we can call them and they can do something similar. So I would say our network is a measure of success.
Yeah.
I would say our networks.
I would say this: our network's ability to solve problems, because that's very hard to put in a measurable metric.
That's right. But network for network's sake doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
So
to solve problems, that's really, I think, over and over again on a regular basis we prove it.
Yep.
And we demonstrate it.
I think our financials are a sign of success. Again, the more financials you have and ability to pursue the mission, the more you can do as an organization, and hope people recognize that. We're far beyond, I think, what most nonprofits, especially in this arena in the construction industry, or we're not just party planners. We're
the graph that shows the growth of our net assets under your leadership. I mean, it's a straight
growth of net assets, growth of reserves. I think all that's a measure of success. Obviously, there's a lot of internal inside baseball. We have our chapter accreditation, getting that done as a measure of success. What are we missing, Sonny? There's a lot. There's a lot of ways here.
We're out of time, and we're missing a lot of things.
So, we challenge you. So let us know what in your mind. It's probably one of those three legs. Those are the pillars of who we are, right?
Yeah.
The networking and business development, the government affairs strength, and the education. So, but there are many, many ways.
Yeah, those three pillars are like jam packed with so many other things within those three, each pillar.
Correct.
Right. There's a lot happening here. So, and listen, it's 4th of July. We want you to have a great time.
We've alluded to it as well in recent podcasts about the quality of the staff we have, the tenure of the staff,
incredible team,
the mission. All these things are measures of success in my book.
Absolutely,
ways we can measure success. So, any event, congratulations on the success of a great country. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. Have a hot dog and a beer for us, or a hamburger,
or both.
I got hot dogs on my mind. So, anyway. I love a good hot dog. So, anyway, happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July.
And until next time, we'll see you.
Yep.
Ciao.
Take care.